All right, everybody. We got one more module left. I'm going to do part of it today, part of it next Friday, because I want to use part of today to do a little bit of brainstorming with you guys on the final exam. Juan did it with CSCI 2, and I think it worked pretty well. So we're going to do that. I copied this from last Friday, and we're going to use it today. It is in the announcements. It says starting notes from module 11A. If you want to grab it and copy and paste it. So separation. The way we've been coding everything, and the way you'll continue to code it for Computer Science 1 and Computer Science 2 is you're basically coding for yourself. You don't need to worry about anybody else, so you don't need to do anything else. But if you're working with a team, you can't have like 20 people all working in the same project. So someone's got to be controlling the main project. And like, let's say we're working with From Software. We're making Elden Ring 2. And you're on like the spell effects team. So you're doing animation in the spell effects, making like the crystal spears launch out and stuff like that. You're not worried about how much damage it does. You're not worried about what the character looks like. You're not worried about anything like that. So you're just focused on spell effects. You don't need to know how the rest of the program runs. You just need to be able to provide the spell so it shoots out. So you won't have access to the main program where Elden Ring 2 is running. You're just going to provide it with your sections of code. So the way that works is when you have a bunch of people working on it, there's one main body. This stays the same. There's only one of these. And you'll have a bunch of classes, like you might have a class for one spell A and another spell for like Pestilent Mist, or you're doing a heal spell. It's got a different animation. So you might have a different class for each spell, depending on what it looks like. All of this stuff, this is our prototype stuff and our includes. And this all goes into a header file. It's called a header file. And if you've got more than one class, you might do more than one class name. But the way it tends to go is whatever the class name is, you're going to name it class name.h. .h is for header file. So we'll have a project up here. It's going to include, it has all of the prototypes. And then all of your implementations go in another folder. These go down into a resource folder. And the resource folder has the same name as the header file, but it's with the CPP. And here you'll have all your implementations for the class. And the only thing you need to put here is include, and then in quotation marks, class name.h. So I'm kind of showing how it's going to peel off. We'll do it with our code in a second. I'll be grading your test this weekend. I graded CSCI 2 last weekend and like Monday and Tuesday, and we've been doing there's been a bunch of stuff going. Last end of the semester this semester has been really busy for teachers. But your test will be graded.
Because the exams are not like
Right. So when you do that, all of this is cut out. That's gone. This is gone. So we need to be able to reference it again. So what we're going to do is now when we do that in our main program, we're going to also put the include class name .h in quotation marks. The header file, it tends to be, this is what is shared with everyone. And this just goes into a resource folder that no one needs to see. Teams resource folder. So I'll pause about that process. This is why I've been trying to get you to do prototypes and implementation separately, because I want you to get used to having them differently. If you're working with anybody else, like a team, you're going to have like whether you're using GitHub or something, you're going to have a resource folder and stuff like that. Different coding languages will have different things, but in all of them, you're not working on the main part. One person's working on the main project and tying in everything together. This is why I've told you throughout the semester, only do couts in methods or functions that say display or print or something like that. Don't put them in anything else, because let's say we're making Elden Ring 2 and I'm like doing that, and I'm doing spell effects for one of the spells, and I'm like, you know what? I want to make, this is just a note for myself. This spell casts Crystal Spear. Can you imagine playing fucking Elden Ring and you're running around, you get a brand new spell and you're just like unleashing it for the first time on the boss, and the fucking text pops up on the screen. You're like, what the fuck is this? No, doesn't belong. Text doesn't belong where it doesn't need to go. So don't do couts where they don't need to go. We'll start doing this in the code in a second. I'm going to add one other comment here in case it's not automatically included. In your header file, that's the name of the header file. But you should have in C++ pragma once. I'll write it down here. Where I can write it bigger. Pragma once. Now, Visual Studio automatically puts it in. When you make a header file, it automatically puts it in. Pragma once, what it does is like, let's picture we're all like, we're on a team of 100 people. We're all using different libraries. We need certain libraries for our components. So we're going to put in our header file what libraries we need. Now we're doing spell effects, but the person doing character design, someone's doing weapon design, they also need visual display effects. They're going to access probably a lot of the same libraries. So when it's all compiled in the main program, when everybody's fed in their stuff, we might see include the graphics library like 20 times. Pragma once only loads it once, so you're not overloading the computer. It's just a like memory management device. for now, and everything you'll do in here and in CSCI 2, continue to leave it as one code. It's a pain in the ass to work with this when you're not part of a team. Like if I'm grading something, it's a pain in the ass. Yeah. There's 4 different files. You either you have to know the path for all of them or put them all in the same folder. And did we do new namespaces in CSCI 2 or did I do it? Do we didn't here? I think it's a CS2 thing also. If we did it, I did it already. Okay. Maybe I'll go over namespaces on next Friday too with sorts. All right. How you doing over there? On the last 2 sections. Okay. He's over here, Da Vinciing it up. I can't help but note you have Professor Allen on your computer, but you don't have Professor Hefe on your computer. What the fuck is that all about?
I don't know. I didn't know there was a sticker. There's a sticker I'm putting on.
Do I have one?
You have a sticker?
I might have one. We'll come back to that. I have it on my laptop. You can see it on my laptop.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that.
Ben and team made it last spring when I managed to get it.
Oh.
I'll be teaching it next spring, not fall, but spring. Then you have the option to take it with me. All right. So I got this in here. So what we're gonna do, let's just look through it real quick. Juan's a slacker. Let's include C standard library. Let's not assume that our IDE is gonna load. I know I'm guilty of doing that from time to time too. This was your code I copied. I everything you had commented out with your like character builder, I didn't put over here, but this is what you shared. I got it. Okay. So what we're gonna do, you've got the solution explorer. If not, if you don't see it there, you should be able to, if you're using Visual Studios, you can go to view and do view solution explorer, but you want to do that so you can see this. And there's header files and resource files. This is where we're gonna go. So on header file, I'm gonna right click and say add new item. And I'm gonna add a header file. And the name of the class that was being used was rectangle. So I'm gonna say rectangle.h. Make sure you flag it as a header file. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to Solution Explorer and I'm going to go to Resource Files, right click, do the same thing, add new item. And it's not going to say, it's going to be a CPP file and it'll be named rectangle CPP. Okay, so in the resource file, this is the resource file. It's very important that it's named the same as the header folder. Other than the .h. They're paired up. And this is where the implementations go. The one thing you need to include every single time is the name or the header file name. I'm going to show you how we included a lot of other shit. We do it with the arrow brackets. If I do that, notice it doesn't like it. So these arrow brackets are for standard library shit, not custom jobs like ours. So I'll comment that out. It should only have to be in this one because this one grabs that one. I mean, this one grabs that one. So this is the header file. It's where we put all the prototypes. You kind of want to stick to the theme or class that you're working with. If you need more files, if you have like a bunch of functions that are not associated with specific files, but they're needed, unless they're needed by a specific class, have them in something else. But like you want to do your classes separate. That way, if I'm loading the spell effects for Crystal Spear, I'm not getting shit for Pestilent Mist or a healing spell. Everything's got to be on its own shit. Put functions that aren't needed in another header file. Or when you learn about namespaces, in your namespace. That's good shit. All right, so what I'm going to do, these are my rectangle header and CPP. I'm going to go to my source file. Let me wait. People still typing. Well, now I'll have to sign up for the tournament if you're going to do it from 5 to 7 next week. I don't have any guilt signing up because I know I'm not going to win. Oh, wait. You and Gus aren't playing. I have a better chance. I'm not terrible, but I'm not great. It's the fucking wrong answer, Juan. You guys is in your obsession with clocks. It's not. I have. Depending on how many people you have. All right. So I'm going to come over to my source file. I am going to grab my class prototype. It looks like it's just class rectangle. And I'm going to control X to cut it out. And then come over to my header file and I'm going to drop it in. So all my prototypes are here. I know there's some red. We'll address that in a second. And then I'm going to come back to my source file. And oh, look, you didn't do shit in the main. That's excellent. I love it. I'm going to grab only the stuff related to rectangles. So rectangle, 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 more rectangle, lots of rectangle. We're going to cut that and we're going to put that in the rectangle resource file. Okay, so there's red in both of them. The main doesn't have shit now, other than this, rectangles. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell this to include rectangle dot h. This gives the main program access to the header file. The header file pulls from the same named resource file as needed. And now notice the red went away in this. Before I had that in there, it was mad about rectangle because we hadn't defined rectangle. There we go. Okay, undo is the win. Okay. Okay, so I've got include rectangle.h. I'm going to come over to the rectangle header file. Nothing's in red anymore. Why? We should put, I see strings here, so I'm going to include string here. I'm going to include my C standard library. Once. Even if I have it here, if I have it in the main, and if I have it in resource file, it's only going to load it once. That way you don't have the file, your memory occupying holding the same shit 3 different times. Let's see what else we got here. I've got a display. I'm guessing there's C outs in that. There's C outs. So I'm gonna come over to the header file and do include IO string. And we're a big fan of using namespace std. So this is all in our header file. Y'all with me? I don't see anything else, but I'm going to come over to the rectangle file, the resource file, and look around. We've just got set length, stuff like that. We've got strings, but the string is in the header file. Got display properties, that's good. Everything's looking good. So in the main, I don't need these anymore. Unless, no, I don't. Because I'm including rectangle and rectangle includes that stuff. So I'm going to just comment that out. I don't need it. The above libraries are included in rectangle.h. And thus we don't need repeats. If we left it in, no problem. Pragma once in the header file saves us from reloading it multiple times. everything in module 11 is not on your project. You don't need to do it. This is just stuff that you should learn how to do because you're going to need it for CSCI 2 and like real world. If you're going to be a programmer in the real world working on a team, you should know how to do this stuff. But I'm not testing you on it. The other stuff we're doing in module 11 is sorting using sorting methods and libraries. And you will see it again in CSCI 2, I promise you. All right. This is all I've got in this thing. In fact, if I took out all this commenting, I don't even need using namespace std. That's in the other one. This is in the header file. Now my main is down to 5 lines of code. Right? All right, so before I click run, notice on the name of each of these files, they all have an asterisk next to them. It means they're all unsaved. If you're using Visual Studios, there's 2 save buttons, save source, save all. When you put your cursor over them, it tells you that. Saving just the one on the left only saves that one. The other 2 have their asterisks. But if I click on save all, they all save and they'll all be uploaded. So now when I run the program, we get what we got last time. Okay. So we could include some more stuff. Like, let's say we wanted more than a rectangle. Let's say we wanted a box. So I'm going to design the box in the main real quick. We'll do double for length, width, and height. What kind of things do we have in rectangle? Let me go grab rectangles. Oh, he did all of them. I'm going to copy this over. We'll go about renaming them. What's the string for? Units. I like it. I guess I need to include that in my box. Perimeter, maybe we'll change that to surface area. And we'll change area to volume. And I'm going to make another prototype that has length arg, width arg, and height arg. And we need a double get height. And we need a void set height. And I will come over to rectangle CPP and I'm going to grab these, steal them, copy them. We're going to rename them to box down below and edit what we need. I'm going to do a control find F. I'll find rectangle. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Do it by hand. So we got box. And just renaming everything over to a rectangle to box. We're going to have to go in and add the height component stuff. And we changed area to volume and we changed perimeter to surface area. So we're going to have to update that. And update our display. It's got new stuff. Okay, all I've done so far is change the names for box. Give you guys a chance to change all the scope resolution and stuff. Perimeter was renamed to surface area. I'll change that. And area was renamed to volume. I'll change the display info. And display info also needs height. And I'm going to put length first, length, width, and then height. Volume's got to change to cube. And area is in terms of square units. All right, so my utility methods are the only things I've updated right now. Let me pause and wait for everybody. All right, let's come up here and start updating. Let's see our box. We've got length, arg. I need one that has all three. We'll say set height to height arg. For the one that doesn't have anything, we will set height to equal 1. Here, the one with well, that's confusing. Says we're taking in the length, but we're not. We're setting, I'm changing that. That looks like some wand madness right there. Do set height here as 1.
What's an example of what?
Those are important. Pause for a second. Just updated the constructors to have length, width, and height. That doesn't have it. Why does that? I made it. Oh. Feels like we should have one that's all three of those as doubles, but without string. Which means I need one more of these. All right, so we got some constructors, however many you made. Get length still does that. Get width still does that. Set width. Get width. I'm going to copy those and make one for height. So get height returns height. And set height sets the height. This is more practice with classes. We got our units there. We got these. I got to change the volume and surface area now. Volume is gate length times gate width times gate height. For surface area, let's look at a picture. Move this out of the way so if you're still writing that. So I have this side right here, the side in front and the side in back are both length times height. And that's front and back. And then the side walls are width times height. And if I look at the top, that's length and that's width. And top and bottom are length times width, the way I wrote it. So I need 2 times length times height, 2 times width times height, 2 times length times width. That's surface area. 2 times, I'll do to get width times get length. What? I could. I didn't write it that way. I don't want to confuse everybody. We need length times height. And I need width times height. So these two are top and bottom, the first two. Get length and height were front and back the way I drew the picture. And width times height were the side walls. I haven't put anything in main. I just want to make sure it compiles. I changed a lot of shit. Okay. Let's come up here and add something in main for the box. We need to change that. We're going to call it display box properties. We just go with display properties. In fact, I'm going to change that on the other one. Let's change them both to display properties. There's a reason for this. But if I do that rectangle, I got to change it over here in these. This will be just called display properties. All right. There we go. We got our box and we got our rectangle. Rectangle is in a separate header and resource file. Box is not. So let's do that with the box now. I'm going to pause and make sure everyone's with. Yeah. So we have a rectangle header. I'm going to come over here and make a box header. Remember to change the name to box. And I'm going to go Solution Explorer and right click on resource files and make a box CPP. So I've got my box header and my box EPP. Let's come over and grab our box methods, our box prototype, and put it in the header folder. And we're going to come over to source and we're going to grab our box implementations and put them in the resource folder. In the resource folder, resource file, you always got to say include the header. And I'm going to come over to header. And it needs all the same shit rectangle used. So I'm going to just copy string C standard library IO stream over using namespace. I want to put it in both of them because I don't know if whoever's working on my stuff in the team needs a box or a rectangle. They may just need the box, not the rectangle. Like if they're making a mimic, they just need the box. They don't want a rectangle, right? If they're doing artwork for the wall, sure, rectangle. So I need it in both. And now in the source, I had include rectangle. Now I need to include box. And it runs just fine. So my program is still super small. The people that are using my shapes and the artwork thing, if they're making the mimic, they don't see, all they see is the header file information, what needs to go in what. They don't need to know the behind the scenes, like how everything's, if I used C math to calculate surface area or did it the way I did it, they don't care. So you kind of want to name your methods, suitable methods, so it's clear what's going on. I did make rectangle H and box H both say display properties. Why is that mad? It is not undefined. You're running it.
Machine spirit.
Okay, so they both say display property. Yeah, it was weird, wasn't it? I could say display rec properties and display box properties. But keeping the name consistent is kind of helpful. When you take CSCI 2, you're going to learn something handy really early on called inheritance. What's the big difference between box and rectangle? We've got third dimension, right? Just height. In fact, if we look at our box code, get length hasn't changed. Set length hasn't changed. Get width hasn't changed. Set width hasn't changed. Only things new are get height and set height. Units haven't changed. Display property, we added height and changed these. When you do inheritance, when you learn about inheritance in CSCI 2, you only need to put the new stuff in, and you're going to say box includes all the rectangle shit, so that you don't have to rewrite all the code again. We spent a good 30 minutes copying and pasting and changing names and doing all that shit. That's a waste of time. And now we're just doing box to rectangle. What if you're doing like you're making video game characters and every single display, like all the different customizations you can make for a video game character need to be saved differently. All the monsters, you need to have different implementations of them. You just want them building off one character type, like all goblins or goblins, and then you might have a goblin shaman and goblin king and goblin, warrior. But they all are goblins, so they have all goblin traits. And then just what's different, you don't want to have to recode the goblin 15 fucking times. Just add on the extra stuff we did. You're gonna learn about that in CSCI 2. And it's called inheritance. It's good stuff. So we've got our stuff. Notice what's changed? Nothing. That's separation. So let's go look at, I'm going to open up the containing folder on our main source file. Because I wanted you to see that rectangle H, rectangle CPP, box H, and box CPP are in the same folder as the source. You're going to want that to happen. Otherwise, you have to give it a file path name. That's a pain in the ass. And you don't need to worry about it right now. So when you're actually working with the team, you'll learn how to do it pretty quickly. So keep them all saved in the same folder. If you're working with another team and is importing it, generally you would have a team resource folder, and you would just add, your code would reference the resource folder and pull everything from there. Any questions on separation? All right, that stuff doesn't get talked about again in CSCI 2. The stuff we're going to do next Friday for a little bit is on bubble sort, doing different types of sort that are in the standard library. You're not being tested on it. You'll see that again in CSCI 2, but it's just for some exposure. Get used to doing stuff like that now. Any questions? All right. Let me save that. I will copy that and put that, well, I guess I got to put a whole bunch of it in the announcements. Let's go look at the, in fact, let me make this 2 videos. I'm going to stop recording and start.